With the end of Tower of Fantasy's first global closed beta test, I thought that I would take a minute here to do a video discussing 5 things that I believe the game does right, and 5 things that I believe the game, well, does wrong. Things that it really excels at, and things that it just doesn't, in an effort to give you a realistic expectation for the game, because let's be real, at the end of the day here, this game is really going to impress some people and disappoint some others, so it's in our best interest to temper our expectations. Quick shout out to our patrons over on Patreon. This allows you to directly support us if you're interested. Every patron will have their name appear at the beginning of every single YouTube video, and you'll be immortalized in the MMO genre forever. First, let's talk about its combat. This is one of the areas that I think the game really excels. It utilizes a hybrid action tap target combat system, allowing for you to engage in full action combat without the need for a target. Yet at the same time, when there are targets around you, you automatically lock on to the one in the center of your screen. But you're capable of cycling through enemies around you. Additionally, you can disable your target altogether. Being able to toggle a selectable target is both a blessing and a curse, as it allows you to close the gap with both aerial enemies that like to keep their distance and other players that run away from you like cowards, which in PvP happens every single match. They CC you until they're unable to anymore, then they run away from you while waiting for their abilities to come out of cooldown, and then just repeat the cycle. On the flip side, the PvP is absolutely atrocious. I'm a huge fan of PvP in my MMOs. I think it really adds something special, but Tower of Fantasy, in the beta at least, there was one single arena. One. It was a small little circle with nowhere really to run, nowhere to hide, nowhere to use to your advantage. You run in literally just a straight line towards the other player, and then you spam every crowd control ability that you have upon closing that gap. The PvP environment is highly skill dependent, and no, that does not mean that the more skill you have, the better you'll be. Rather, if you have the right weapons with their corresponding skills, then you'll win. This is made abundantly clear after having PvP'd in it for several days. Arenas consist of 1v1 matches. There were no options for 2v2, none for 3v3, no cooperative play in PvP whatsoever. This inhibits the system, honestly, as it doesn't provide opportunities for composition synergy between players and classes, and will likely be why the PvP is mostly ignored, except for players that have optimal characters unlocked. The world is absolutely massive. In the beta alone, we managed to cover, what, 6 to 8 different areas in total? These zones were stunning. I love that games are taking this kind of approach to their worlds. Each zone had its own unique aesthetic, look, and feel to them. Some of them were post-apocalyptic with the remnants of civilization just scattered around. Others were a little more scrappy, I guess, with what seems like it was ripped right out of Borderlands. Some were also lush and filled with forests and waterfalls, and then others were frigid tundras. While the world was expansive, however, there's very little incentive to actually do anything outside of collecting, which, once you've already collected everything, leaves you with no real purpose, or killing world bosses. There are a few different side quests that are scattered around here and there, and the odd daily that you need to do, like killing a monster, but the world itself feels, well, largely empty, void of life and purpose. Even monster spawns are fairly sporadic and spread out. I love anime aesthetics. They are legitimately my favorite type of graphical style. Tales of Arise, God Eaters, Scarlet Nexus. Oh wait, they're all Bamco games, aren't they? And, well, Tower of Fantasy offers us what is arguably, at present, the greatest looking anime MMO. There is no game out there that looks as good as this one does, not even PSO2 New Genesis, which I'm aware might be somewhat of a contentious opinion to have. The character models are gorgeous, the environments are stunning, even your abilities both look high quality and feel very fluid. Yet at the same time, character animations themselves leave a lot to be desired. At times, the running, especially the climbing, character interaction, seeing how janky the characters can look in cutscenes just left me laughing at times. Some characters, well, they don't even move their mouths during the cutscene. They're talking to me telepathically, I guess. I was kind of shocked at how low quality this felt at times. Narratives, the story, this is one of the most important things to me, and seeing them half-ass that like this just left a bad taste in my mouth. And while I noted earlier that there wasn't a whole lot to really incentivize remaining in the open world, the opposite holds true for instance content. There is just so much content to partake of both solo or with other players. You can queue for a surplus of what I can only describe as dungeons, either by yourself, which is how I tend to play my games, or with other players like our trusty healer Hikari, who we always forced into these instances with us. Because things are more fun when you play with friends, right? Or at least they're easier since you have other people to carry you. Yet, while there are seemingly endless things to do to preoccupy yourself with every week, you do run into the issue of time gating. And this is where the game, for me, really turned me away. I'm the kind of person that likes to play games how I want, when I want. Thus, after spending the first 2 days playing through the story, being hit with, "You've played enough story for today, come back in 57 hours to continue more," was probably the most depressing thing that I have ever seen in an MMO. Do they really expect me to wait several days to continue to play the game? Is locking content behind such an atrocious paywall really what they believe players want? That will just be fine waiting for days at a time to continue like 30 minutes of the story, only to be locked out again with nothing to do but repetitiously grind the same instances and dailies? Time gating is a massive red flag for me. And finally, the gacha system. This game employs a weapon character system where you pull for certain characters and their corresponding weapons. The rates from what I saw were much higher than in Genshin, and every 80 pulls you were guaranteed an SR or SSR character. Unlike Genshin, however, where if you succeed in obtaining an SR or SSR character, it resets your pity, in Tower of Fantasy, it does not, meaning that you can obtain 3 SSR characters and you're guaranteed an SR or SSR at 80 pulls as well. You're also capable of earning a lot of currency for roles by merely participating in open world content, opening up endless opportunities to roll for whatever character you want. But the gacha system is also a double-edged sword, because if you don't get the correct character and subsequently weapon, you're going to find yourself severely limited, both in PvE and in PvP. In PvP, players that wail to obtain the best characters are going to have access to CC chain combos that you just don't, and that you can't compete with. In PvE, imagine repeatedly getting a bow or a stave hero when all you want is a katana or dual blade character. You're stuck playing a ranged class as opposed to a melee class unless you opt for a basic common version of the weapon, severely limiting your potential and your output. So, while obtaining characters can be easy and rewarding, it can also ruin any potential fun you would otherwise have from the game. Ultimately, Tower of Fantasy was a lot of fun, but it is also admittedly incredibly frustrating. I'm excited to see the game fully launch and to see what 2.0 brings with it, but at the same time, I don't really feel as though I'll be playing it all that often, maybe once or twice a week to keep up to date with the story. If Tower of Fantasy isn't your thing though, here's a list of plenty of other MMOs confirmed to be coming this year in 2022.